Is Giannis headed out? What do you think?
Well, and there's a hitch thrown into that as well. Obviously, Giannis leaves the game last night against the Pistons, a game which the Bucks won over the Pistons last night, but Giannis left with a lower body injury. We'll hear more on exactly the extent of that injury. He's expected to have an MRI today, so TBD on what Giannis's status is. So I don't think we can have a trade conversation without also couching it with Giannis's injury last night. And thank goodness the Bucks won last night because I think Milwaukee fans would be teetering on to pure and utter devastation had Giannis asked for a trade, allegedly, got hurt, and then they also lost. So at least you have a little bit of, sugar in your coffee there. It feels like it's inevitable. It feels like it is inevitable that Giannis is on his way out of Milwaukee because you're right. I feel like the last 5 years, we've been having this conversation nearly weekly, monthly, definitely annually of Giannis to the Knicks, Giannis to the Lakers. We are all gluttonous to see Giannis in a big market, sexy kind of team. And I've always just kind of rolled my eyes at it because can't we just let small market teams have good things? Can't we just be happy with Giannis in Milwaukee? Because Giannis, by all intents and purposes, for a long time, was happy in Milwaukee. But this feels different. And Doc Rivers came out in a press conference last night and said Giannis Antetokounmpo did not ask for a trade. Well, I don't think that Giannis has to ask for a trade formally for Giannis to want out. I mean, honestly, Giannis having a first round elimination the last 3 years has been one of the most patient superstars that we've seen in the NBA. I know the Bucks beat the Pistons last night. I don't think anybody thinks the Bucks are a better team than the Detroit Pistons. The Bucks also just lost to the Wizards. The Bucks are a bad basketball team with Giannis and certainly without Giannis. The Bucks aren't going to win anything at least in the short term. Giannis Antetokounmpo is 31 years old. He knows his window is closing at some point, and Giannis wants to win. He wants to win a championship. He wants to win, period. And he's not going to be winning with this iteration of the Milwaukee Bucks. So this feels different. And this is the first time that I do feel like a trade is impending.
I don't. And I hear you on everything you just said, but I just don't think that there's a simple answer to this. I think what Giannis is doing is he's continuing to put pressure on the Bucks to make sure that they're doing everything they need to do to be a contender, and he's reminding them that he's not happy playing losing basketball. Those are all things that make sense. We're hearing about his frustration. We're hearing from his agent. We're hearing all of this conversation about, but even go back to the actual report. As somebody I talked to yesterday asked me, what was really reported that's new? I mean, the conversation here at this point is that they're going to talk about what's best for his future and what it looks like moving forward. But so much of this also comes on the heels of some of the reporting we heard from Wendy about, well, Giannis, whether he asked for a trade or whether he told people he wanted to be traded or whether he demanded a trade, all of these different, little portions of it. But over the summer, he definitely made it clear he wants to be a Knick. Okay, fine. He's not a Knick. Like, he made it clear over the summer. If he made it clear over the summer that he wants to be a Knick, he's not a Knick, and there's a reason he's not a Knick. So now everything would have to stack together in a way today that they couldn't stack together in the summer. By the way, a time that would have made much more sense to make a move. To me, I understand that everybody wants to put Giannis on a team where he can win. Hell, I want to see Giannis win more championships. I want to see Giannis be in an opportunity to be the best he can be. But does that mean that I think there's an actual valid trade that's going to happen this season during the season? No. And in part, Caroline, the other portion of this that I would say is that I think the fact, you're right, Milwaukee's not a very good basketball team, but the East isn't very good. So if Milwaukee believes that over the course of the year, some of their young talent's going to get better, and if they believe that over the course of the year, they can right this ship, if they believe over the course of the year that they can simply get into the playoffs in this wide open East, maybe they believe they have a chance. I don't think anybody's bad enough to just throw in the towel, and I don't think anybody's good enough in the East to deserve to go all in. So for all of those reasons, this just feels like the annual, hey, we need something to talk about. Like, so every 3 weeks, we're going to find a reason to bring up Giannis.
Do you believe that?
Yeah.
Like, do you believe that the Bucks can figure things out? Do you
No.
believe that the East is so wide open that the Bucks have a chance? Because I don't. Look, the East feels far more wide open than the West does. I mean, the West is truly the Wild West. But this is a bad team. Like, it could be easy to talk yourself into saying, well, anything can happen in this East. I don't believe that. And I don't believe that there is a move to be made because the Bucks don't have any sort of capital or equity. I don't think there's any move to be made to make the Bucks all of a sudden true contenders in, granted, a wide open East, but to make a move to make them better to be a contender at all. They don't have any money. They tied up all of that money this past year in acquiring Miles Turner. They pushed all of their chips into the middle to make Giannis happy. That was clear that they were willing to totally fluff the books and invest so much money into this roster. Probably bad investments, let's be fair, into this roster to make Giannis happy and say, hey, look, we're doing everything that we can to make this team a consistent contender. Hey, we'll sign your brother. Will that make you happy? We'll sign your brother. But I think that we've learned and we know about Giannis. He wants to win. And that's great that the Bucks pushed all their chips in the middle to make him happy and make this team a contender. But they're just not. I want Giannis to stay in Milwaukee. I like when small market teams are competitive and compete for championships. I like superstars in small market teams. I'm from one. I root for one. But they're not contenders. And the only thing I think worse than a small market team not being competitive is a certified superstar who will go down as one of the greatest players in the history of the sport. And that's what I think Giannis is. That's how much respect I have for Giannis, who he is as a player, is to be on a team that he's just being wasted in his prime, and the window of his prime is closing.
I agree with so much of the sentiment of what you just said. But as I continue to say with Giannis, I don't think that there's necessarily an easy fix to any of this. You're right. I don't believe Milwaukee's going to turn around and be great. I also don't believe that the acquisition of Giannis will make the Knicks, for example. Everybody's saying, oh, put him on the Knicks. That's where he wants to go. Okay, so let's play this out. The Knicks give up Karl Anthony Towns and a couple other players and a bunch of draft picks. Is that going to make the Knicks better than Oklahoma City? No, not this year. So, like, you're giving up all of this equity right now for what? I mean, it's just such a difficult proposition, which is part of the reason, Caroline, I'm out on a lot of the trade conversations we're here right now because it feels like there's a bunch of big names, and what we're doing every week is we're sitting here saying, oh, man, they're unhappy. We're going to find reasons to trade all over the place. So do you believe that there are a bunch of dominoes that are about to fall across the NBA? Are we about to see big names shipped from city to city in order to try and improve some of these situations?
I think we probably will, but I don't think that Giannis is going to be, the first domino that starts all of these trades. You can talk about LaMelo Ball in Charlotte. We can talk about John Morant in Memphis. We can talk about AD in Dallas. But I don't think GMs are kind of sitting on their hands waiting for that first Giannis domino to fall. I think that each of those individual players and organizations have their own rationalizations of why they are either shopping or holding on to their certified superstars. Like in Memphis, I think that they would want to. They'd be willing to move on from John Morant, understanding that he is a certified superstar in this league, but also understanding that, hey, it's run its course here. It's time for him to go. I'm sure Memphis would be ready to move on from Ja if and when the right trade package presents itself. So, LaMelo, I think that the Hornets probably want to see what they can get out of their young star. I don't think that we're at the same point with LaMelo as Ja is with Memphis. Same thing with AD. In order to trade a guy, you have to have a trade partner. And if I'm a GM in the NBA, I'm not giving up any sort of draft capital for AD. When he's healthy, he's great, but that's when. And that's a really big if. And he hasn't been healthy enough for me to give up tangible, legitimate assets for AD's efforts. Same thing with Giannis. Look, Giannis to the Knicks, that would be the number one story on every sports show across America. I don't see it because I don't know what the Knicks have to trade in return that would make the trade worthwhile for Milwaukee. I view Milwaukee that they can say, look, we're not winning now. We're not going to win with Giannis. So we have to roll the dice and say, can we win without him? Can we win with the assets that we would get in return for trading a superstar in his prime? That would be, the approach for me. And I just don't think the Knicks have that same kind of value. Honestly, Fitz, I would love to see Giannis with the Spurs. Can you imagine Victor Wembanyama and Giannis? That would be the most terrifying duo in the NBA at the rim. And then that kind of alleviates some of the injury concerns about Wemby. Look, if he needs to rest, if he's out for a couple of weeks, well, Giannis can carry a brunt of the load. And the Spurs can continue to build for a championship and not kind of ebb and flow and go as Wemby and his health goes.
Yeah, I think part of this, to your point, is that for me, so many of the players that we're talking about in these trades are either flawed or the teams that they'd be going to are flawed. You're right. Giannis to the Spurs would be absolutely beautiful. I also look at it and say I think that the Bucks are going to have to make a decision here. And this is where everybody says, "Well, get rid of him now because if you wait to the summer, then he's just going to leave." Well, I don't believe that the Bucks believe that still at this point. I think the Bucks believe that they can keep Giannis in the building. So I don't think they're willing to give up on the prospect that Giannis will be there long term. I don't think AD has anything worth left trading for. I think there's a ton of baggage on Zion when you look at the injuries. I don't think Ja and LaMelo are easily moved from where they are to other places. It's complicated. You could talk me into Harden maybe going somewhere, but for what? So I think what happens right now is that we want to play 2K. Like we as a general basketball population, we just want to turn around and say, okay, I found a video game way to do this. Okay. Well, this is my question for all of it. If you're going to leverage your future for any of the players that we're talking about, will it make you better than Oklahoma City? And if the answer is no, then my question is, why are you leveraging your future for it?